Well, I wasn't so sure what was going to happen last night after that ugly, ugly game and after the atmospheric river hit at the same time. But the sun did indeed rise in the Bay Area on Monday morning. And boy, was that spectacular. That's probably the last thing a lot of 49ers fans want to hear right now. There is a lot of demand for gloominess online, and that's okay. And there probably should be as far as the 49ers' fortunes are concerned, because that was sure ugly. I mean, you know that puke emoji that you can give on your iPhone or on Twitter or wherever? That would accurately summarize the 49ers performance against the Colts. So, four straight losses. I don't blame you if you feel that the 49ers are in free fall mode, because this is something I warned about a couple weeks ago. It seemed that the 49ers had a different array of problems on a week by week basis, right? So, against Philadelphia and against Green Bay, it was slow offensive starts. Then they solved the slow offensive starts against Seattle, but then it was a matter of not being able to execute after the initial offensive script had gone well. And really, my warning was, if you're playing a game of whack a mole, it's one of those arcade games where, you smack whatever pops up down out of a different hole. And then as soon as you smack it down, something else pops up. If you are playing that game with your problems as a football team indefinitely for too long, it means that you're not a good football team. You have a few weeks at the start of the year to iron out issues, of course. But by the time November hits, you better be hitting your stride. And that means that it's all alarm bells off right now. The 49ers, their next game is going to be on Halloween on October 31st. And if they're not hitting their stride by then what are you even doing here with as talented as this roster is? And that's a hill that I'm going to die on. This is a very talented roster that is underperforming for the 49ers, and I think that there are many reasons behind this. They're complex, but I'm going to try to get into as many as possible during this video to treat this as fairly as possible without, being reactionary or knee jerk or anything like that. But the biggest thing right now that I sense with the 49ers when I'm sitting in the press conference room, when I'm watching a practice, and of course, when I'm watching a terrible performance, just a disjointed performance like the one that I saw against the Colts, is that there just seems to be a general malaise surrounding Kyle Shanahan and the vibe that is being imparted on this team from the top down. There was a lot of optimism in the offseason. There was a lot of energy in the offseason. The 49ers, went gung ho. They traded up for that number 3 pick and they drafted Trey Lance, and they cleared room for Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're ready to attack this season with a lot of fervor. There was a lot of the two quarterback talk. That's actually what Kyle Shanahan was preparing to do throughout the course of the preseason. He went out there and did it, and it was one of those things where you go out there against Detroit in the first drive, and the 49ers, after that fumble, by the way, I still remember that. Alex Mack and Jimmy Garoppolo were on the same page there. But then they turn around and they march down the whole field. Good plays. Trey Lance comes in, throws the touchdown pass to Trent Sherfield, and it looked like everything that Kyle Shanahan had built up as far as team roster building, execution, two quarterbacks, Trey Lance in the red zone, all this and all that, looked like it was flowing and everybody was happy, and the 49ers were going to go on their merry way with a talented roster ready to, give the NFC West some trouble. But then something happened, and I think it was a lot of it happened in the first quarter, week 2 in Philadelphia. I think that the plan was to play Trey Lance in all of these games, but the 49ers hit some kind of panic button when they couldn't pick up a first down in the first quarter against Philadelphia. They eventually figured it out, but it got to the point where Kyle Shanahan just sat Trey Lance and stubbornly sat Trey Lance throughout the whole game against Philadelphia. Obviously, you could see why he did that. For that one game, he thought that the crowd was, everything was going nuts in that game. It was a road game against Brandon Graham, Hargrave, all those guys. He wanted the veteran to take him through. But there was a chance for Shanahan to resettle and reattack with his plan in week 3 against the Packers. And again, the 49ers got off to a slow start. And again, he really wasn't able to do that. And only when he absolutely positively had to insert Trey Lance into the game, which was on that final play of the first half when Lance scored the touchdown that helped get the 49ers back in it, only when Shanahan absolutely had to do so did he actually do so. And it seemed that he was almost forced to to do so. It wasn't that same flow that we had seen and heard from him throughout the preseason, throughout training camp, when he was excitedly talking about the quarterback position as if he was treating it as a new running back or receiver room where he would have talent with multiple different skill sets and he'd be able to attack defenses in a creative way. I mean, this was supposed to be the offensive genius that's Kyle Shanahan approaching the game in innovative fashion to give the 49ers an edge offensively, to take some of the efficiency that he had gleaned from Jimmy Garoppolo and pair it with some of the, just athleticism and the ceiling busting potential of Trey Lance while Trey Lance got his development in as a rookie. I mean, this was all exciting stuff coming out of the preseason. And at some point during those first couple of weeks, and I think it probably was because of the slow starts against Philadelphia and Green Bay, Shanahan just lost that fervor. He lost that verve. He lost the cutting edge desire that I think was a theme of the 49ers offseason, and they just didn't carry it very far into the regular season. And then ever since then, especially since the losses started coming in, and we'll talk a little bit more about why those losses came in over the next few weeks. But ever since then, Shanahan has seemed to be in a worse and worse mood at every subsequent press conference, to the point where, yes, we're not allowed into the locker room this year due to all the COVID protocols, but it's to the point now where he's just so quiet. I sit there in that press conference room and I have to strain to hear what Kyle Shanahan is saying. I mean, these are just painful things to sit through. What once was, one of the most informative 20 minutes of my day whenever Kyle Shanahan had a presser, because he'd be up there, he'd be upbeat, he'd be talking fast, he'd be talking fairly loud, he'd give you, good details about strategy more so than almost any other coach in the NFL. I mean, the clips from Kyle Shanahan press conferences went viral for positive reasons back in the past. All of a sudden, you're sitting there, even during the week, but especially after these games, and it looks like all the colors out of his face. He's just sitting there mumbling, and you have to strain to hear what he's saying. I mean, the energy is just completely different than it was before, and you can't tell me that energy is going to be 100% different than the energy that's being broadcast in the 49ers building. Human beings don't just flip an on and off switch. So even if we're not allowed in the locker room as the media right now, it's a safe bet to say that energy that Kyle Shanahan used to project, the positive energy that used to be projected at those pressers, it's a safe bet to say that's not being projected, at least fully, into the 49ers locker room right now. And I mean, what better evidence or what more complete evidence of that is there than the way the 49ers are actually playing? I mean, it is a disjointed mess on the field right now for the 49ers. They look like they haven't been coached to defend deep passes, right? Pass interference is just getting ridiculous for this team. That's what I wrote about after the game last night, and the article is now up on The Athletic. In fact, I could probably even share that right now so you can take a look at it. There it is. Headline: Pass interference galore. The 49ers secondary was again the defensive weak link against the Colts. The 49ers have given up 250 pass interference penalty yards this season. Since this one website that I use started tracking that stat in 2009, only two teams have given up over 300 pass interference yards over the course of a whole season. And the 49ers have only played 6 games. They lead the NFL by far in every defensive pass interference metric. They just can't cover, right, downfield. So they're wasting a very good defensive line, even when it's shorthanded. Bosa's getting pressure all the time, so they can't cover, right? That just seems to be one huge part of the disjointed mess. On offense, they can't do anything, at least when Jimmy Garoppolo has been starting the past 2 games, beyond the opening game script. So Shanahan seems to have a great plan early. He was rolling Garoppolo out. He was, setting him up with manageable throws. He was running outside zone right, outside zone left. Elijah Mitchell was scoring a touchdown. Then you see none of that pass there. Except for that three-play 70-yard drive when Shanahan actually did what the defense was dictating. But other than that, it was just like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole. There was none of that play calling ingenuity or creativity that so many people have praised Kyle Shanahan for over the years, right? That was gone. And then the malaise that I'm talking about just kind of stretched the whole team. Look at Brandon Ayuk, for example. We can have stupid arguments over and over again about whether or not Brandon Ayuk is in the doghouse, whatever that even means. But the point is that he's playing. He's not being disciplined. He's playing, and he's playing terribly. He's not getting open. They're not throwing him the ball. And when he has a chance to handle the ball, like that one punt, he's kicking it into the end zone, and he's lucky that it wasn't a safety because he did kick into the end zone. They called it a touchback. But I mean, how can you have any confidence in a player who lets a ball roll by him, glances it, touches it half-heartedly on the way there, and then runs after it, doesn't even fall on it, and kicks it into his own end zone? I mean, I think that illustrates that kind of energy, that kind of malaise that's coming from the top down is really permeating the whole 49ers team. At least it did during the performance on Sunday night. So you essentially have one player that they trust offensively as skill position player in Debo Samuel, and Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not playing well right now, is just force feeding him the football. The interception that went off of Samuel's chest, that was a typical force because there's a defender draped all over him, has his arm in there. It's going to be a really tough catch. Meanwhile, Mohamed Sanu is running free over the middle of the field. Garoppolo completely misses him. And I think it's just a downward spiral that the 49ers are seeing. Lack of creativity in the play calling department, lack of accuracy for Garoppolo, which is my next thing right now. So we have a lack of accuracy from Garoppolo, fails to bail Kyle Shanahan out of uncreative, poorly designed game plans where the 49ers just fall off a cliff after the script. So you see a 1 of 11 performance on third down. It means that Shanahan can never get into a rhythm as a play caller, but it's his job to establish that rhythm along with Garoppolo's job to execute so that rhythm is established. This is a two-pronged lightsaber for the Star Wars fans there. You have to have both. You have to have the play caller doing his job, and you have to have the quarterback executing it, especially in a Kyle Shanahan offense, which is all about the quarterback being the executor. And you're not getting it from Shanahan on his end, and you weren't getting it from Garoppolo for sure last night on his end. So then the big, question is, you have the Ferrari in the garage right now, right? That's not tuned up yet, probably not ready to drive at full efficiency. And we saw that against Arizona. How do you manage Trey Lance properly? Because the 49ers have already failed at managing him properly once, and they better hope that it doesn't have more serious downstream ramifications. In the case of uh, Trey Lance, that they had to throw him in there before he was ready to make the 25 to 30 good decisions from the pocket per game to win an NFL game. So what did they do? They had to run Trey Lance a lot. They ran QB power with their prized number 3 overall pick over and over again. Trey Lance ended up running 16 times in his NFL debut against the Cardinals as a 21-year-old against one of the top 10 defenses in the league. Needless to say, that didn't end up well. It wasn't sustainable. Trey Lance is now hurt because of that. How badly is he hurt? We'll probably find out at 3:30 p.m. today when Kyle Shanahan talks. So when that happens, we'll see if Trey Lance is going to be ready to come back, ready to give this 49ers offense some kind of spark, because I think they really need it. I mean, I've been advocating for Trey Lance to play for a long time because this offense needs something to kind of give it that bump, right? And because of what happened in Arizona, because Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt the week before against Seattle, because they had to throw Trey Lance out there and they were desperate to get a win, so they allowed him to run the ball 16 times in that first NFL game, and because he got hurt, it really scuttles or potentially scuttles the 49ers plan here moving forward, because now they're not healthy in the quarterback room. right? You want Trey Lance to give you a boost, but if he's hurt his knee because you haven't used him properly in his first game, how the hell are you supposed to develop him? You could see how these, questionable decisions lead into chain reactions that hurt the 49ers in the long run. In an ideal world, back when it was sunny during the preseason against the Raiders, before the atmospheric river hit the Bay Area, it was Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance alternating in and out during that one drive, probably to torture the Lions more than anything. And it was against the Raiders' third string defense, and it looked great. And the 49ers had a great plan. But Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And then the 49ers got punched in the face. You could say that it was the loss to the Packers. Probably more the loss to the Seahawks, and the Garoppolo injury was the real punch to the face because they looked completely unprepared for Trey Lance to come into that football game against Seattle, right? They didn't even call pass play for him for like 2 possessions. And then against the Cardinals, they were obviously unprepared to run a game plan that protected Trey Lance. So you got to feel bad for the kid because he's running the ball 16 times and just taking vicious hits, trying to run without his helmet. I mean, that didn't work. Then you fast forward to now, and you're not sure which quarterback is healthy, who they're going to play next week. I don't even think that Kyle Shanahan knew coming out of the press conference yesterday. So once the 49ers get a health update, once he sees, just how uninspired that whole performance yesterday was, minus Trent Williams, I think that hurt as well. That goes back to this, the general malaise. I think Kyle Shanahan will see that he needs to inject that verve into the offense. And I think that comes with Trey Lance. I really do think it comes with Trey Lance. And I'm not saying bench Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that the 49ers came into this season with a plan to play both of these guys because they understood Trey's limitations and they also understood Jimmy's limitations. And they spent this whole offseason intricately trying to weave both of those together. And then they abandoned it at the first sight of adversity in week 2 at Philadelphia. And we haven't seen those two things woven together really outside of the touchdown run against Green Bay. And that was a one play kind of thing. And hey, to be honest, it worked for the 49ers. So you have to find a way to get Trey Lance, if he's healthy, onto the field because I think that's the only thing that can snap Shanahan and this team out of its malaise. The quarterback position is the most important in the game. Maybe it snaps Garoppolo out of his malaise too. It's gotten to the point right now where this is an overall energy thing for the 49ers, where you have different problems, like I said, popping up in different places, and you need a blanket solution that injects the entire team with energy. I'll give you a good example. Back in 2017, the 49ers were terrible, right? They were losing all their games, much less talented roster than we see today. Well, right now, the 49ers are going back to Chicago just like they were in week, 13 it was of 2017 when they started Jimmy Garoppolo. They got that, fresh blood in there. They injected Garoppolo, who was a veteran at the time. He didn't know the playbook all too well, but he had enough experience to take over and lead the 49ers to a 5-0 record, and they look great. I don't think that Lance is at that point yet. We saw him against Arizona. I mean, obviously, you have to manage Lance in a way that doesn't overexpose him and doesn't get him hurt again. Because if Lance gets hurt again, this is a complete catastrophe for the 49ers. So you can't manage him like you managed Garoppolo in 2017 as a veteran who was auditioning for a contract. Lance is a rookie that you still have under team control for several more years, and he is the future. But you have to take the potential energy that Lance can give you, harness it, and have him play some football for you. Now, you can't have him, just get destroyed by Khalil Mack 7 or 8 times a game. We saw him take all those hits against Arizona. It didn't end well. So that's where you leverage Garoppolo in this. So in my opinion, Shanahan has to go back to what he planned throughout the whole offseason, and he can't just crawl into a shell like he essentially did after week 2, put Trey Lance on the shelf and let, this offense, which prepared for something much greater than it's currently doing, kind of flounder there 5 yards at a time. I understand that the 49ers lost Raheem Mostert in week 1. I understand that they lost Jason Verrett in week 1, which puts more pressure on the offense because that secondary can't stop committing defensive pass interference penalties. But you have to adapt if you're Kyle Shanahan. You have to realize, okay, this was the blueprint. These were the expected points and expected yards that we had out of our offense. And this is the new reality without Mostert Now without Trent Williams, without Jason Verrett on defense, this is what we're going to need to do to score enough points to win games. And sometimes you just have to pull one of your tricks out of the bag a little bit earlier than you thought you might need it. And I think that's kind of the case of the 49ers right now. I think they have to shake it up. And, ironically, shaking it up means going back to the sense of creativity and the sense of inventiveness that we saw from Kyle Shanahan before. I think that's why this is so frustrating for the 49ers right now, is that creativity, that inventiveness, that willingness to push the edge this offseason by going out and getting Trey Lance, by going keeping Jimmy Garoppolo, by saying, hey, we're going to do something different offensively. That willingness to push the edge, that was vintage Kyle Shanahan up until week 2 of this season, right? Now it seems all but eradicated with little hints that it might still be there along the way. Best example comes from the Colts game yesterday. They're running 8 guys in the box, Indianapolis is, against the 49ers all game long. They are daring the 49ers to pass the ball after that opening drive script. But they just keep on running it, and they're not inventive with the passes at all. It's like there's some kind of lack of trust there between Shanahan and Garoppolo. And then not only that, it's a multi-directional lack of trust between Garoppolo and his receivers. That's why Deebo Samuel's getting force-fed the ball all the time. Nobody else is getting open. But whatever the reason, whether it's Ayuk's fault, whether it's Sanu's fault, I don't know. I know Garoppolo missed an open Sanu yesterday, but the point is that zeroing in on, one guy doesn't trust another guy, I think is narrow-minded and doesn't really encapsulate the big problem. There is multi-directional lack of trust going on here. I think it goes between Shanahan and Garoppolo, Shanahan and Ayuk, Garoppolo and Ayuk, Garoppolo and anybody not named Deebo Samuel. It's just not working out. So that kind of caught the 49ers offense in this rut after the opening script, because when you have it scripted, you don't really need to trust as much because you know where you're going to go with the ball. But after that opening script, you're ad-libbing. There's a lot of reactionary stuff, and the 49ers just seem lost offensively, with the exception of a 3-play, 70-yard drive, all explosive passes from Jimmy Garoppolo to score a touchdown. Now explain that. Explain how this team is able to go 3 plays, 70 yards in a downpour in the wind, all through the air, like a hot knife through butter, but then they crawl right back into a shell and can't do anything anymore. So it's a shell for multiple possessions before, a shell for multiple possessions after, and then 3 plays, 70 yards through the air, just like that. I mean, that's absolutely maddening. If you don't have that 3-play, 70-yard stretch, then you're like, okay, these guys are just completely terrible. But they have that stretch. And on that stretch, Garoppolo's rolling out. He's pushing the ball a little bit further downfield. Guys are open. They expose the Colts for stacking 8 guys in the box. And then Shanahan, Garoppolo, whoever's fault it is, I don't know. I don't know how this play calling is working back and forth. I think it's just this general lack of trust. They don't go back to it. And then they lose the football game. So, I mean, it's you need that swagger. You need that verve, like I said in the, it's down there right now. You need that missing verve. You need that energy. And I think that whatever the formula is right now is not delivering it for the 49ers. And I think it's because they counted on a different formula to deliver it, and they prepared all offseason with that formula. And that formula involves Trey Lance. So Trey Lance needs to play, but he needs to be healthy. And the problem is it's a catch-22. The 49ers have already injured Trey Lance by running him 16 times in the game. They're in a hell of a mess. It's 2-4 for this team. The only good news on the horizon for them is that Justin Fields has been bad. He's fumbled the ball a lot. I mean, he's been a turnover machine for Chicago. That 49ers defense and pass rush should be able to do something against the Bears, but the pass rush has been doing work for the 49ers here lately. The problem is the secondary doesn't turn around and can't cover. So if Justin Fields just tosses the ball up in the air, he's probably going to get 5 defensive pass interference calls. And if that's the case, then that Chicago defense can still play some ball. And I don't know what that 49ers offense is going to do, regardless of who's under center. It's going to take that spark. And at some point, they just have to hope that they get lucky and they find it with Trey Lance, whether he's developed enough or not to play right now. Right. So it's real feel along as you go territory for the 49ers right now. They just need to scratch and claw their way for a win in a way they didn't scratch and claw for a win last night. I mean, you talk about the desire, the verve from a team, the the ability to go out there and, grab a win like they did so many times in 2019, a couple times in 2020. How about Drake Kirkpatrick just getting run over by Michael Pittman on that final touchdown? Just embarrassing. Just the effort wasn't there for the 49ers to make the plays that needed to be made to win the game. And that was one of my keys entering the game. I knew it was going to be raining. I knew that you could probably toss a lot of the analytics out the window, and that ended up being the case. It ended up being about who wanted to win those one-on-one matchups more. I mean, these are all professionals. These are all NFL players. And the 49ers definitely came up on the short end of that stick. All right, I'm gonna answer some questions and then we'll call it for lunch break. There's a lot of them today. Anybody have any actual questions, or are people just arguing in the comments section here? Remember to follow on Twitter. Lombardi himself subscribes to the YouTube channel because I'm streaming this in both places. So I think we have some crossing of the crowds right now. Well, here's the thing about Garoppolo, and this is a much bigger issue that I think that Kyle Shanahan is going to have to address sooner rather than later. Players, and especially quarterbacks that he's had under his tutelage over a longer period of time with the 49ers, all seem to have regressed as far as I don't know if they've regressed as far as their skill set goes, or if the trust between play caller and quarterback has regressed because Shanahan's too hard on them or he's too particular. I don't know what it is, but the Jimmy Garoppolo that we saw in 2017 was a really, really good quarterback for those 5 games. Everybody then blamed, the slight regression into 2019 when he was still good in 2019. Everybody blamed that regression though on the ACL, maybe rightfully so. But there was definitely less spunk from Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019, right? There was Shanahan used to call him the human jugs machine because he would just get rid of that ball, pepper it down the field. He'd fit it into those tight windows and it would flummox defenders. The 49ers would be really efficient on third down, and they would score points. I mean, they wouldn't go 3 and out too, so that would preserve the defense. And there was a magic to Jimmy Garoppolo. A lot of people saw that in 2017. The 49ers saw it. They gave him the big deal. That's where all that, Jimmy G mania started. So there was a reason to trust Garoppolo, to be excited about his future. But as time has gone on, we've seen a less and less of that magic all the way up until this 2021 season. And I get it. A lot of it's been obfuscated by injuries, but you saw it yesterday, right? You could talk about the rain all you want, but Carson Wentz was infinitely more accurate in the rainy conditions than Jimmy Garoppolo was. He was more decisive with where he's going to go with the football. There's been an erosion of trust, and Nick Mullins didn't really progress over his time with the 49ers either, right? His debut against the Raiders was his strongest game. You can't say that CJ Beathard progressed with the 49ers. We could extend this past the quarterback position. Brandon Ayuk has taken an alarming step back in year 2. Deebo Samuel, I guess you could say here in year 3, obviously has taken a step forward. So it's not all bad news for the 49ers, but I just don't see development at the offensive skill positions, especially a quarterback, happening in a healthy way for this franchise. And now if you're a 49ers fan, you have to hope that happens with Trey Lance. The first game against Arizona did not leave me too optimistic. Trey Lance was not managed well in that first game. They cannot effectively develop Trey Lance by running him 16 times a game. It's just not going to work. So it's the trust issues here. It's not just, oh, Garoppolo's terrible, Shanahan doesn't trust him. This is a multi-directional complex thing. There might not be trust in the coach's play calling. The coach might not trust the quarterback. The quarterback might not trust the receivers. The coach might not trust the receivers. I mean, you could see this is a tangled web, and that's ugly. And I know people always on Twitter want a simple answer. They want to say, oh, Garoppolo sucks. This is why they're bad. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not here to sugarcoat it for you. If it were just a one-person solution here, the 49ers would have let Jimmy Garoppolo go a long time ago. I mean, they're trying to win too. I think it's an entangled mess, which is worse news. For anybody trying to say I'm trying to pump the 49ers up, I think I'm saying that this is worse news than a lot of you think it is. This is not plug and play, backup quarterback is the most popular guy in town kind of situation. This is an entangled mess where there's not a lot of trust between play caller, quarterback, receiver, and you name it, and there's not a lot of discipline offensively. The 49ers had 7 penalties for 122 yards yesterday, right? They're the most penalized team in all of football. They can't stop defensive penalties. They can't stop offensive penalties. Jalen Moore was running the wrong play to take away a big third down conversion. They can't pass block in true pass sets. They could only pass block in play action sets, but the coach doesn't call enough play action to make stuff work when it should. I mean, it's a situation that there's a lot of stuff going wrong. And like again, it's a game of whack-a-mole. You try to fix one thing, but then something else pops up. That's a telltale sign of mediocrity. So it's just not one thing. And the 49ers wish it were just one thing, but it's not. And I think that's the big problem. Now they can hope that if you inject some energy, that the domino effect causes stuff to fall into place, which is what happened in 2017 when Garoppolo came aboard. So maybe it happens if you give Lance a little bit of playing time. I don't know. How can we know if we haven't seen the actual plan in practice yet? The 49ers worked on this throughout all of training camp, throughout all of the preseason. They even ran it out during the games, and then all of a sudden they just put Lance on the shelf and don't use him. So they practice to play one way, and then they play like it's 2019 all over again. Of course, you're going to get a poor man's version, a really crappy version of 2019 if you don't play the way that you practiced. And they practiced with Lance. They gave him some first team reps on those read options. I mean, at least get him in there as a decoy to get that run game going more consistently past the first drive. It's one of those things where it seems like a rudderless ship right now. And the 49ers better find their rudder really quickly, or else this season's going to go way down the drain. This is a good point right here. Third and long, Jimmy had one pulled back. He did throw a nice pass to Jamichael Hasty, and Hasty tripped. It's part of the rain game, though. Guys are going to slip. Guys are going to trip. Throws are going to get away. The Colts made way more of the throws that they needed to win the game than the 49ers. Uh, Off of play action, the 49ers had plenty of time to throw yesterday. That's why they need to run a little bit more play action because it buys Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo more time to attack downfield. The refs were begging to throw pass interference flags yesterday, threw them against the 49ers. Not once did the 49ers try anything downfield. This offensive line for the 49ers is pass protecting better than it has in the past. Yet Shanahan is calling plays as if it's still the 2020 offensive line. Just not the case. They've gotten better in the pass protection game with Alex Mack. There's still a weakness with Daniel Brunskill. But you saw, I mean, they ran downfield concepts out of play action on the 3-play, 70-yard drive. They need to do that more. They needed to do that more. They probably would have a chance to win that game if they did that more on Sunday against the Colts, but they didn't. So, I'm the first one to talk about pass protection issues. I get it. But this is more than pass protection. This is about attacking the defense downfield in a game where that needed to happen, but Kyle Shanahan just stuck outside of that one drive, 3 plays, 70 yards. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, that's an explosive passing drive, but the offense seemed handcuffed beyond that, and it just didn't work in the game. All right, any more questions? I'm hungry. I got to get to lunch. I mean, I think I answered this. Why is Shanahan hesitating to play Lance? I think we saw it during the Arizona game. Lance is not good enough from the pocket yet within the context of Shanahan's offense to protect himself in a standard way. So the 49ers have to end up running him if they want to try to win the game a lot of times. And when they run him 16 times, he's going to get hurt. I think it's for Lance's own self preservation. The thing is, the 49ers did this to themselves by not mixing Lance in more frequently against Detroit, against Philadelphia, and against Green Bay so that he would start developing and start being ready to protect himself. Because now they're going to have to throw him in there essentially cold turkey, just like they did against Arizona. There's a reason they had this intricate quarterback plan, and it was so it could manage competing interests. It could manage the fact that Trey Lance was this very inexperienced rookie, but also could give the team a ton right away with his athleticism. It could manage that, get him into games, give the 49ers the benefit without costing them the downside. But they ignored that early in the season when they thought their quarterbacks would be perpetually healthy and they'd be able to plug Lance in whenever. And because of the lack of discipline early in the season to make the quarterback plan work, the 49ers are now caught between a rock and a hard place where if you do stick Trey Lance in there, it's probably for full-time action and he may not be ready for it. But they need Trey Lance's spark, so I don't care. Get Trey Lance in the football game. Find a way to make it happen. I think he's going to make everybody better, including Jimmy Garoppolo. And at least there's a chance of that. And you better take that chance because you're 2-4 right now, and it's not looking good. I did enjoy Kendrick Bourne throwing his first NFL touchdown. That was cool. I like Kendrick Bourne. Maybe it's a guy the 49ers undervalued, huh? Durable receiver, good chemistry with Garoppolo. Doesn't seem like Garoppolo's chemistry in anybody but Deebo Samuel right now. So it's not good. Yeah, Dante Pettis regressed too. Yeah, this might be Shanahan lost one of his main lieutenants. And when the script looks so good, that means that Shanahan has had a chance to get that opening game script, going over the course of the whole week. So obviously his genius is put to the test there. But then there are signs that Kyle's overwhelmed during the games. There really are. That challenge flag was terrible. That means that he's not really, paying attention. He's got too many things going on, probably thinking of the next play. The biggest sign that he's not, really all there during games, that he's overwhelmed, is the fact that the 49ers are just going completely off the rails offensively. It goes from script production to no script, no production, and then that weird blip, 3 plays, 70 yards. That's the most maddening part of this. It shows you that the 49ers have the tools to actually make stuff work, but they're not really using them. It's a disjointed effort, and they've got to fix it. All right, guys, that's enough. Hope everybody has blown off some steam, but that's what's wrong with the 49ers right now. Shanahan speaks in 3 hours. I'll cover it. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we will talk to you all next time. Oh, there's one more good question. I know, Derek. Why did the offense with Lance at Arizona not use any play action and rollouts and misdirection, just read option and runs? Because I think they didn't fully trust Lance with his throwing ability yet. You saw the one high interception early on. This is the inherent problem. They're developing Lance from a really raw point. They don't want to fully play him right away because there's, this lack of trust is not just Garoppolo, Shanahan, Ayuk, whatever. There's also a lack of trust in Trey Lance, as you can see. That's the weird part, and that's why it's a Shanahan malaise from the top down. I mean, there's the common denominator of the lack of trust is Shanahan. It's not Garoppolo. It's not Lance. I mean, all of the quarterbacks right now are dealing with, or both of the quarterbacks, I should say, since you better hope we don't see Nate Sudfeld, but both of the quarterbacks are dealing with constraints from their play caller, which is never good. But if there are going to be constraints, at least you would hope that the strengths of each quarterback are leveraged so that the effect of those constraints are minimized. But what I saw against Arizona and what I saw against Seattle the week before is a 49ers play caller in Kyle Shanahan that didn't fully trust his quarterback in Lance to execute his offense. And he didn't run his standard offense as a result. So he started running read option. He started running quarterback power. And you don't want to run quarterback power for your 21-year-old facing NFL competition for the first time, or else he's going to get hurt. And that's exactly what happened. So it's this catch-22. The only way that Lance gets to that pocket-based comfort is throwing more from the pocket, but the 49ers don't trust him throwing from the pocket because they think they're going to lose. So what do you do? And I think that's why the only solution that they thought over this offseason to contend in 2021, not throw the season away, was to play both of these quarterbacks so you could slowly spoon feed Lance, get him into the mix. And maybe they go back to that. Maybe Lance is still hurt. I don't know. That's another thing, these injuries and the misdiagnosis and the longer return to play times and the initial expectation. That's a whole other mess that I could dedicate an hour to talking to. But I've already dedicated 40 minutes to this. Long story short, 49ers need a spark of energy. I think it comes by playing Trey Lance. Shanahan needs to recommit to the creativity that brought him here, and he needs to crawl out of his shell and do something out of the box. to allow this team to rediscover the mojo. If you're trying to pretend like it's 2019, you got to create some mojo because the 2019 49ers had mojo. The 2021 49ers don't. All right, everybody enjoy your lunch. We'll talk to you soon.